last month on the Boomer Music Experience, Randy Helm and I talked about Brian Wilson. There was so much to talk about. We just made part two, and we're going to carry on. I think we're up to Pet Sounds, I do believe. But first, Randy, I want to give you an opportunity to talk about one of the things that you do every year that I always appreciate. And we kind of mentioned it in our part one show, is about you and your pink shoes. Do you want to elaborate, Mr. Helmo?
Oh, yeah. This year again, Gail Catherwood, chairperson of the CIBC Run for the Cure. On Tuesday, September the 9th at the Delhi German Home, they will be having again the CIBC Run for the Cure fashion show, dinner and fashion show. And best to get tickets early because that's usually a sold out venue very quickly. And Gail's a great boss. I really enjoy working with her. And also, too, the actual day of the run for the Cure is always the first Sunday in October.
Yeah, October
and this
5th
year it'll
this year.
be October 5th this year. So if you can attend both events, all the better. But time restrictions, family, life events happen. Even if you can't attend both, could you attend maybe one? That would help. That would help a lot.
Well,
Anyway,
I think the fashion show just for you, because man, you dress to the nines for it. You get into it. You love doing that, don't you?
Yeah. I've got two pink suits. I've got a pink hat, and this year, first ever, I'll be wearing. Ready for this?
Yep.
Pink suede shoes. I'm taking a page from Carl Perkins' blue suede shoes. I'm wearing pink suede shoes on Tuesday, September the 9th.
He is a fashion statement, folks. I can vouch for that. The wonderful Randy Helmo will be doing the Run for the Cure fashion show. What was the date on that, Randy?
Tuesday, September 9th.
Yeah, folks, make sure you get your tickets. I'm sure if you get a hold of Gail, or probably just, Google it, you'll find it. And
Sure.
Always a great event when we can help out. And I appreciate all the stuff you do in the community, Randy, at Classy FM. It's important to do that. But It's time to move on and talk a little bit more about the life and times of Brian Wilson.
Right on. Dave, we've got Pet Sounds and Smile. We'll take a look at that. Some of the declining years very briefly, and the continued touring from 2011 to 2025. And we're also going to hit a course on the accolades and the awards. Very important. Pet Sounds and Smile. In December of 1965, Brian Wilson enlisted jingle writer Tony Asher as his lyricist for the Beach Boys' next album, Pet Sounds, May of 1966. And it was the best album they've ever done. He produced most of the album between January and April of 1966 across multiple Hollywood studios, mainly employing his bandmates for singing, vocal parts, and session musicians for the backing tracks. How good is that? Now, reflecting on the album, Brian Wilson highlighted the instrumental Let's Go Away for a While, and his most satisfying piece of music at that time was exactly that. In 1995, in an interview, he called Carolyn No probably the best song I've ever written. It was a pretty good song, but I think he's written other good songs too to match that. The album's lead single, Carolyn No, was released in March of 1966, became Brian Wilson's first solo credit.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that. Okay.
Interesting. Wilson met Derek Taylor, and of course, Derek Taylor is the former Beatles press officer. We all know the Beatles. There we go.
Yep.
Who became the Beach Boys' publicist in 1966.
Did not know that.
Taylor, he launched a media campaign to elevate his public image, promoting him as a genius. So here he's promoting Brian Wilson as a genius in music, the former press officer for the Beatles.
Yeah.
Wow. How good is that? And of course, well, the bandmates, including Mike Love and Carl Wilson, they grew frustrated with the media coverage increasingly centered on Brian Wilson, overshadowing the group's collaborative efforts. And yeah, I can see where there'd be a little tenseness there. Yeah. Through the late 1966, Brian Wilson worked extensively on the Beach Boys single Good Vibrations,
Yeah.
which topped the US charts in December of that same year. And he began collaborating with session musician Van Dyke Parks on Smile.
Okay.
Okay, and planned a follow-up to Pet Sounds.
Can I ask a quick question, Randy?
Yeah.
So you're watching this from 62 on, you're hearing that music as a 14-year-old, and you get to Pet Sounds, which I think you said was 66.
Yeah.
Are you seeing, like, I know you're a pretty young fellow then, but are you seeing this evolution of their music? It kind of reminds me of the Beatles, right? Because it started out
That's
really simple, and then you just see
exactly right,
this
Dave.
expansive
You're
growth to
absolutely
orchestras.
perfect.
Yeah, and what was it like recognizing that? Like, I mean, when you heard Pet Sounds for the first time, were you a little taken back? Were you like, oh, or were you sort of going, wow, this is new, this is creative?
Yeah.
What was it?
You hit the nail right on the head, Dave. It was, this is new. It's exciting. Something totally different for the Beach Boys. Like, wow, Pet Sounds. Unbelievable. Yeah. It was a journey in change, but it was a journey in change for the Beach Boys in the right direction.
Okay. And I've read in the past too, where that when the Beatles heard that, it was like they went, oh, we got to up our game. Like this, and we talked about this before. It's not so much a rivalry, but it was just this growth of music in that era that was changing. And you know, you
That's
get
right.
the Beach Boys and the Beatles leading the way with different, like just up in the game constantly. These albums were becoming stories, right? They were just becoming long form stories, which was incredible.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Unbelievable. We'll now take a look just very briefly between the years 1967 and 1973. In July of that year, the Beach Boys released Heroes and Villains as a single, and you can see the Heroes and Villains CD record or CD 45 RPM on the bulletin board here.
Yep.
And that was a good song too, Heroes and Villains. Good single for them. And it was really kind of the continuation of this journey from Pet Sounds and Heroes and Villains. It just Brian Wilson, he had it all.
Yep.
The orchestration, the writing, just unbelievable. We now take a look at the early 2000s. Brian Wilson released his first live album, Live at the Roxy Theater. Later that year, he embarked on U.S. tour dates featuring the first full live performances of Pet Sounds with Brian Wilson backed by a 55-piece orchestra.
Wow.
Hokey Christmas. Wow. In March of 2001, Wilson attended a tribute show held in his honor at Radio City Music Hall in downtown New York, where he performed, why not, Heroes and Villains.
Yeah.
And that was publicly for the first time in decades. Pet Sounds tour was followed by one in Europe in 2002. So now we're doing the tours in the early 2000s, still vibrant, full of life, the sounds of the Beach Boys. Isn't this an incredible journey, Dave?
Well, you think about it too, after all he'd been through in his life, and then, you know, to have that in the 60s and then come back in the early 2000s and still his music was still relevant. Like it was very his compositions sort of have stood the test of time. You know what I mean? When you look at Pet Sounds and Smile, which we're going to get into, it's kind of an interesting dynamic to see somebody that can still. I watched an interview on Charlie Rose where he felt his music was ahead of its time, especially Smile. He felt that
Right
it was
on.
just way ahead of its time. So it's
Mhm.
great that that did finally happen. I think that's where you're going next. But I mean, just to get him back on the road, get his feet going again so he could rejuvenate, right, to finish Smile, which was 30, I want to say 34, 35 years in the making to finish.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yep. We'll now take a look at the time frame from 2011 to 2025. In mid 2011, Brian Wilson reunited with Mike Love, Al Jardine, David Marks, and Bruce Johnston to re-record Do It Again in secret for a potential 50th anniversary album.
Didn't know that. Okay,
Wow.
cool.
Ultimately, Brian Wilson agreed to the tour, which lasted until September, that's September 2012, and to record the album. And this is a good one. I've got the single on this one, and all the radio stations love it because it's their theme song. He recorded the album, That's Why God Made the Radio. And that was released in June of 2012. And all the radio stations were just
Still
playing
loving
the heap
it.
out of it. Yeah. And that's become, for most radio stations now, their anthem song. And if you get a chance to listen to the lyrics, rightfully so. Rightfully
Huh,
so.
I know
Great.
that.
And it's got a good rhythm to it. And yeah, that's why God made the radio. It's worth listening to. In September of 2014, Brian Wilson attended the premiere of Bill Pollard's biopic Love and Mercy at the Toronto International Film Centre Festival. Yeah. Wow. In October, the BBC released a re-recorded version of God Only Knows, another great song by the Bee
Yes.
Gees,
Yeah.
featuring Wilson, Brian May, Elton John,
Boy.
and Stevie Wonder and Lord to commemorate the launch of BBC Music. Hokey Dinah. Wow. And a
Incredible.
week later, he was featured as a guest vocalist on Emily Haney's single Falling Apart. His cover of Paul McCartney's Wonderlust was included on the tribute album The Art of McCartney in November. Wow.
Just hanging with the greats.
Yep, absolutely. Beatles producer George Martin, and he was
he
was really the fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th Beatle. No one made a greater impact on the Beatles than Brian Wilson, quote unquote, George Martin, the musician who challenged them most of all. Jimmy Webb, great writer, he
Yep.
explained, as far as a major modern producer who was working right in the middle of the pop culture, no one was doing what Brian was doing. He didn't even know that it was possible until he did it.
Yeah.
David Crosby of Crosby, Stills and Nash and Young called Brian Wilson the most highly regarded pop musician in America, hands down.
Wow. That's big accolades.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. In March of 2016, Brian Wilson and Al Jardine began the Pet Sounds 50th Anniversary World Tour, billed as his final performances of the album. In 2016, the magazine Rolling Stone interviewed Brian Wilson. He responded to a retirement question by stating he would rather continuing to tour than to sit idle.
Yeah, there it
Good
is.
for Brian.
Yeah.
Good for Brian.
It's just
In
9 years ago.
2019, Brian Wilson embarked on a co-headliner tour with the Zombies, of course, the British group,
Yeah.
the Zombies, performing selections from Friends and Surf's Up. At the end of 2021, just 4 years ago, Brian Wilson sold his publishing rights to Universal Music Publishing Group for $50 million. Wow. Now, Wilson was paid almost $32 million for his songwriting share, plus another $19 million. I can't even comprehend that. Plus another $19 million for his revision rights. His ability to reclaim his song rights within a time period after signing them away, which he could do. And this is what I alluded to in
Earlier.
part one with Taylor Swift doing the same thing. In July 26th, 2022, just 3 years ago, Brian Wilson played his last concert as part of a joint tour with the rock group Chicago.
I didn't know that. Did you know that? I didn't know that. Wow.
No. And this was at the Pine Knob Musical Theater in Clarkston, Michigan, not too far from here.
No.
Hokey Dinah. Wow. That is hard to believe.
And Chicago's your band, man. That's the guys that you love. So it's
Peter Cetera in Chicago. So now we'd like to take a look at the various accolades, awards, and honors. Brian, he was a 9-time, well, actually the Beach Boys, 9-time Grammy Award nominee, a 2-time winner for the Beach Boys. I kind of disagree with that. I think the Beach Boys should have won a lot more in the Grammy nominations. Grammy Awards. Also for the Best Rock Instrumental Performance of Mrs. O'Leary's Cow. That's 2005. 2013, the Best Historical Album for the Smile Sessions, and rightly so. In 1988, as a member of the Beach Boys, he was awarded the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Okay. Primetime Emmy Award in 1996 for Outstanding Cultural Music Dance Program for Brian Wilson. I Just Wasn't Made for These Times was the name of the song. Just wasn't made for these times. Songwriters Hall of Fame. The year 2000, Brian Wilson. He was inducted by Sir Paul McCartney.
That's not bad. That's not bad.
That is better than good. The Broadcast Music Incorporated Award for the BMI Icon Award, Brian Wilson. The UK Music Hall of Fame in 2006, he was inducted by Pink Floyd, who was the guitarist, of course, David Gilmour for Pink Floyd. And the Hollywood Bowl Hall of Fame in 2007. At the Kennedy Center Honors, he received the Congressional Medal of Honor 2007. Huge, mega huge. That is the most.
That's as high as it's going to get there.
Wow. Congressional Medal. Wow. That's equal to a Lifetime Achievement Award.
It is. Well, that's really what it is. It's like that,
Yeah. And the UCLA Award, George and Ira Gershwin Award, UCLA for Spring Sing, Brian Wilson. And of course, Golden Globe Award, the Best Original Song for One Kind of Love from Love and Mercy. Yeah, that Love and Mercy really piled up the rewards for him. Rolling Stone magazine. Brian Wilson ranked number 52 in the list of the 100 greatest singers of all time. 52? I don't think so. He's got to be in the top 10. I put him in the top 10, top 5.
I want to look at that list. I want to get a look at that list because if they did a songwriter, is he like number 1, number 2? He should be. You know what I mean? If that was what they were, I mean, this was singers, so this wasn't songwriters. But I mean, I'm curious now. That kind of intrigues me.
In 2012, Wilson was ranked number 8 in the list of the top 50 greatest producers ever. Now that I can see definitely in the
Mm.
top 10
I think
for,
top. Yeah, I might go top 5 on that with you on that one too.
yeah, wow. And Rolling Stone magazine, again in 2015, 7 years later, Brian Wilson was ranked number 12 in the list of the 100 greatest songwriters of all time. I got to put him the top 3.
Yeah, me too. He's got to be higher. I mean, you got Lennon, you got McCartney, you got. I mean, there's a lot of unbelievable great songwriters, but he's in that upper echelon. There's, you know what I mean.
Oh
There's
yeah.
maybe 3 or 4 of them, and we'll have to do a show down the road on that, just to look at that list to see
Mhm.
who the Stones were placing above them. Rolling Stone was placing above them, but I mean,
Yeah.
yeah,
Good
that's a
point.
tough one, right? Like,
It is.
he's got to
It's
be up there. Come on, look at the
oh
music,
yeah.
the body of work.
Exactly. Yeah. The year 2022, 3 years ago, Ultimate Classic Rock, Brian Wilson was ranked second in the list of the best producers in rock history.
There you
Now,
go.
I agree with that, either one or number 2,
Yeah,
either or. Ultimate Class Rocket, Rock, yeah,
rock
rock
it,
on,
rock.
rock. Rolling Stone, once again, in 2023, Brian Wilson was ranked number 57 in the list of the 200 greatest singers of all time. Nowhere. No. He's up there in the top 10. Sorry, Rolling Stone. I don't know. I just, no. Got a lot of disagreements there with Rolling Stone. No.
I think they do that. They create that controversy just so they know guys like you will go, wait a minute.
Yeah, exactly. Just to get me going
DJs
and
all
raise my
over the
blood
world are.
pressure. And I'd like to conclude part 2, Dave, with a saying that Brian Wilson made. The Beatles inspired me, he writes. They didn't influence me. Once again, the Beatles inspired me. They didn't influence me.
It's
And
an
that is
interesting
the
quote.
life
Yeah.
of Brian Wilson. Wow.
Can we talk a second about what, as a DJ, what the Beach Boy music means to you? I mean, you can't not do a summer party without something being played from the Beach Boys, correct?
Absolutely correct, Dave. The Beach Boys define summer music.
Yeah.
The Beach Boys define summer car shows.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's true. I never thought of that.
yeah,
Yeah.
with their Little Do Scoop there,
Yeah.
that's a great album. Little Do Scoop, yeah, like, and also too, they had such a unique sound uh, through Brian Wilson, producer, songwriter, you
Yeah.
name it. The California sound, the surfing sound, but I've got to add to that and the car show sound
Yeah.
because Little Do Scoop, uh, they Brian Wilson was a mastermind of creating music genre crossover genres
Yeah.
that to this day no one else has ever achieved. David Foster, Canadian, he's come close, but he's the only one.
And I think too the music, because what I alluded to in the first show was it was kind of passed down. That's what my parents listened to. That those albums, those 45s were at our house.
Yeah. Oh,
And I
yeah.
think that's continued on because my kids know who the Beach Boys are. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like it's just, you want to hear good vibrations every once in a while, man. You want to hear it. And
Yeah.
it's just that music, that flow just continues. They're I put them they're in that same category as the Beatles where that music will last 100 years. It's just
Yes.
given because it's so
Unique.
ahead of its time, like Brian Wilson
Oh,
said at one point.
big time. Major, major, big time.
It is
And go ahead.
is there a number one song that you get requests for that of the Beach Boys? Just
Um,
curious.
actually, there's 3 of them. Little Do Scoop.
Yeah.
I get a lot of requests for that, and especially at car shows. Um, I Get Around, May of
Oh yeah.
1964, and California Girls, June of
Oh
1965.
damn, yeah, I
California
forgot
Girls.
about that.
Those
California
3
Girls.
really um, would be, I mean, they're all great songs, but those three really stand out. The most requested, and also at seniors dances too. Beach
Yeah, and
Boys,
it's
California Girls, I Get Around, uh, you name it. Like it's it's great. It's
it's
a
one of
sound that will always live on forever. You're absolutely correct, Dave.
I love doing this show. I love the two parts we were able to do on Brian Wilson because I think like you and I said, we both learned stuff about him and the influence. Probably, we could do another show just on the influences he had outside. Think of all the
Mhm.
other groups that when Pet Sounds come out, we're like, oh my god, we got up our game, right?
Mhm.
Groups that weren't even around then that were just starting to form, and they're listening to this music, and those
So true.
influences just carry on through. And I think that's one of the pieces where every once in a while you'll hear a musician say, "Oh, like the Beach Boys," or "I used to listen to Brian Wilson. I want to be like him." And it's just
Mhm.
incredible to when you hear that because you recognize that legacy is living and breathing.
Oh, major, major, big time. And to close, Dave, I'd like to share with our audience just one more time the late Brian Wilson. And I quote, "The Beatles inspired me. They didn't influence me." Brian Wilson.
Great show, Randy. Thank you.
Thank you.